Hey, good people. Sammy Ash here, Executive Director of the Ash Academy, and your host of our Inspire, Uplift, Engage podcast. As usual, I have a few announcements before we get right into the show. Starting off with our Career Arc workshop. This upcoming week, we're focused on internships and resumes. So please join us if you're in need of career guidance. That's what we're here for. So, additionally, we've got a save the date for Giving Tuesday, which is December 1st this year. Be sure to keep an eye out for our fundraisers for gift matching, more specifically on Facebook, for that year end giving that will help us continue our work for students of color pursuing the arts and STEM fields in terms of mentorships, scholarships, parental engagement programs, and we can't forget our social outreach. Super important that we give back to our community any way we can outside of the academic field. So don't miss our second annual The Farm to Table event, November 21st, where we're discussing the importance of yoga and meditation, giving free yoga and meditation classes, and doing a mental health check in. We're also fundraising for the food share of Ventura County and Tender Life Maternity Home. So I'll drop all the links for these announcements in our description box. Now, let's get started with the show. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Ash Academy's Inspire, Uplift, Engage podcast. I am Sammy Ash, your host and the Executive Director of the Ash Academy. Today, we are joined by Oscar Delgadillo, aka Ox. He is a Mexico born, Chicago raised software engineer in the logistics and supply chain tech space. That is a mouthful. we want to know exactly what you do, how you do it, how we get there to expand horizons. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I'm a software engineer, I guess, by title.
Mm-hmm.
I am more specifically a front end engineer for the app that we're developing in the supply chain space. So basically, supply chain logistics is kind of that whole transportation, think trucking, freight trucking. We're
Wow.
developing solutions for that industry. So specifically, our app handles trying to manage different entities in that space. So our software is actually called a TMS, a transportation management system. And again, it's just a fancy way of saying like I have a dashboard and I'm trying to manage all these different records, whether it's facilities, customers, carriers, trucks, trailers, drivers. So it's that.
That's so interesting because we've recently spoken to a Java developer who has been a software engineer in the past. So, like, tech exists in everyone's industry. Like, you need it to function, no matter if you're an artist or any other industry under the sun. And it's something that we want to spread to let everybody know. Like, it doesn't matter where you're trying to go in your field, there will be tech present. For the most part, here and there might be something Amish where you don't. Shout out to the Amish, but for the most part, there will be some type of connectivity that requires some tech. So there's a lot more industries than we originally thought of that would be touched there. So awesome! Thank you so much for joining us. But I want to know your journey to getting there. What is your path, like school? Let us know what your journey was.
It's interesting that you also said, kind of finding out the industries that have tech in it. I started out, my career kind of started after I dropped out of college. So I'm a college dropout. I didn't know what to do. And at that time, cousins were working as truck drivers. Eventually, they became dispatchers. And so they got me a job basically as originally supposed to be a dispatcher in a trucking company.
Hmm.
Somehow I got thrown into accounting for them. I got started doing their bookkeeping. I'm not sure how. Again, it was just sort of like thrown into this thing.
It's a very interesting place to fall into the
Oh yeah,
accounting.
I think it's more like it's the accountant at that first company that I worked for was basically like, I don't want to do this. Let's have the new guy do it. I think. So yeah, lo and behold, I was doing the invoicing, I was doing the bookkeeping, and after that, one cousin of mine and I basically started forming trucking companies. And when they wouldn't work out, we would just like start another one or join forces with another carrier company. And it was just that for a couple years. And it wasn't until I started getting really frustrated with the current software that we were using. So software in certain industries, like such as logistics and supply chain, it's super outdated.
Mm.
Like even the software that we were using while we were looking for, everything looked like it was literally built in like 95, like Windows 95. It was so ancient looking. And we're talking software that was expensive, and it was
Yeah.
the most current software that we could get. It still didn't solve a lot of our problems. So I kind of started thinking like, well, what can I do to even make some of this invoicing kind of faster? And somehow, I got to Googling and started like, okay, well, what can I do to combine these two kind of processes together? And
Hmm.
fell into scripting, learned Python on my own, and did a script that actually worked. And I just instantly fell in love. I was just like, wow,
Wow.
I can actually make things happen. What is this thing even? Like, I didn't even know what it was called. Fortunately, I went into my social networks, and I was just like, what is this thing? And someone was like, oh yeah, you might be interested in programming or in this. And coincidentally, that person had a friend who had graduated from a boot camp, and they were like, talk to this person, check out the boot camp that they went to. And sure enough, I reached out. It was a boot camp called Deaf Boot Camp. It's defunct now. It actually went out of business in 2017.
Mm.
But it was actually one of the more promising boot camps at that time. So it was actually pretty popular. And I ended up applying. I got in, and I learned a program for my family, and came back and definitely started trying to create solutions for them. Fortunately, it didn't work out. It didn't work out as I planned, and had to exit that company. And my goal at that point was, let me get an actual software engineer role somewhere. So
That is so interesting, especially the school part. So, like, you think that some of these paths require, like, you have to get this degree, you have to have this type of skill set. So, in that applying, I guess, in the course of applying for jobs, do they really look at degrees, or it's really, can you do this function and can you prove yourself to code and understand our programming? So kind of want to expand some horizons there because this is useful information for everyone out there.
yeah, absolutely. I think first of all, the boot camp that I went to stressed that a lot, where they were saying you don't need a degree. Most, there are companies out there that aren't looking for degrees. Um, of course, like you kind of tend to find out that's more of the startups or like the smaller businesses that don't
Mm,
really worry about those things. Sometimes consulting companies also don't really look into that. But um, what's great is that I graduated that boot camp back in 2016. So in the span of like 4 years, it kept getting better and better. Like my options became better, just knowing that certain companies were just, again, not requiring degrees. And so
mhm,
when I first started my search, definitely look for companies that were really asking more for experience, and also companies that really appreciate non-traditional backgrounds for software engineer, which is a thing. Started becoming a thing where it's like, oh, I'm a
mhm,
non-traditional, and so and then from then I also, again, at the time that I was first searching, I was just kind of like, oh, like whatever role falls, I'll take it. But then I started realizing, well, I can use my, experience in the logistics space to see if I can find a job there. And sure enough, there's a bunch here in Chicago. There's actually a really large logistics company called Coyote. I, searched there. I didn't get anything there. I didn't get a hit there. But sure enough, a lot of those type of companies are popping up here in Chicago. And if it's not a specific startup, like I ended up joining a startup
mhm.
basically, but there are logistics companies out there that are now forming their own sort of software, development departments, and they're hiring for those kind of things. So um,
Hey, I always say that it's not the end of the world if you don't figure out your life at 18, and like college doesn't happen in some like straightforward like 4 years. Like there is a life outside of that if that doesn't work out for you. So it's awesome that you've been able to find your path. Um, so is there like continued education after the boot camp that you do? Like are there, I guess, some things that you like to do on the side just to kind of stay sharp? Um,
uh,
is that kind of like the name of the game for people who do what you do, or?
yeah, absolutely. So one way that while I was working with family, and I knew that should anything have happened there, and I needed to maybe find another role, find somewhere else where I would want to grow.
Hmm.
I knew that I needed to keep my skills sharp for sure, and so a couple things that I did was just started following um, uh, engineers that have tutorials, that sell tutorials, or some Udemy classes, those kind of things, and then you start kind of finding the people that you whose style you really like, and so you can definitely always follow them. They tend to routinely put out advanced level tutorials, advanced level things, and as things change too, the our we're definitely the industry is definitely known for things just kind of upgrading and changing so quickly. You have to stay on top of things, so definitely it's important to always see what's out there, and most of the time um, work kind of provides that a little bit, as I'm noticing now. Like I notice coworkers would be like, oh, there's this new thing, like we probably have to start learning it, but a lot of that
Hmm.
has to come from the communities that you networking that you kind of build.
Well, speaking of networking, how important has networking been for your career path?
Well, I mean, it's basically the reason why I have the job that I have now. It's through that same person that I reached out to for that boot camp. I actually kept in touch with her through the duration of my boot camp afterwards as well. The boot camp was really good at actually hosting networking events and panelist style events.
So,
And she was her name's Kara. She's a she was also very active as a person trying to just kind of help other people kind of progress through their career. So I saw her a couple times. We became really good friends and kept in touch.
awesome.
And the minute I was looking, she really became an advocate for me. She would look for things and suggest me to these positions as well without me even having to ask her, which was great. Eventually, the person who reached out, um, that person who ended up kind of hiring me for this company for Mastery, she actually is also friends with Kara. So it's just kind of like your network kind of starts communicating with each other, and
The
that's where I am now.
ecosystem.
Yeah.
Perfect, perfect. So you're kind of speaking of like a peer uplift, so friends that are looking out for you and reaching out. But did you have any mentors along the way, or that you've taken on now that are kind of guiding you? Or
I would say, well, I was looking, not really. I did try to, even though they weren't like officially mentors, I really looked up to certain people, like Kara herself. I would, I looked to what she was doing, and
Mhm.
kind of, if I had questions, I would ask her, but it wasn't really like anything really official. I would say after the person who hired me for Mastery, Rebecca, she ultimately became my manager until she left the company as well. But she was also very much I guess her position in where she stood in terms of like as a manager, you need to mentor people. So she was really good at that. She was my manager, and she mentored me through her time there at Mastery. And after she left, the next person that became my manager, America, she also kind of a mentor to me. She's again very it's a manager that she's very mentor focused, so she knows that she doesn't just have to lead, but she's definitely to a degree a very good mentor to me.
Awesome. Now, are you paying it forward? Are you a part of any like groups and doing some peer uplift or mentoring yourself?
Oh yes. I knew that was my goal from the very beginning that I learned to program. One of the things that stuck out in my mind as I even applied for the boot camp, I know I was getting ahead of myself, but I was like, as soon as I learn how to program, I'm going to reach out to the Latinx youth. That's been one of my sort of goals, is to eventually end there, helping that community. In the meantime, though, again, just sort of trying to um, get my footing and see how I can help communities. I did join a couple groups focused on kind of helping the underrepresented communities. One
Mhm.
of them is a meetup here in Chicago called People of Color Code, um, and
Awesome.
it started as a meetup. We're trying to create a website. It's in the making. The website will come out soon, but for now it's a meetup, and we have a Slack community as well, and that one is super beginner friendly. I've noticed, for some reason it just attracts beginners, and so it's
Mhm.
actually given me a great opportunity to pass on. Even though I don't feel like I'm that much knowledgeable. When super beginners come in, I can definitely say, okay, yes, I can I can definitely help you. Like you know, I'm just one step ahead of you. I can definitely help you out in that. And as well, I found a really good community of Latinx folks in Tequeria. I think they're actually out of the Bay Area in California. um, and
So
so with them I found, I mean, already existent huge community. I've already offered, you know, it's very active there, and a lot of the people there are also very active with these with the same intentions. So I'm just like, let me look out to what they're doing and see where I can help out.
that's awesome. Has COVID changed anything for you to kind of, connect with more people, or has it always just kind of been already in the works that you were doing all these meetups and being a part of these Slack groups? So, because those are digital spaces, so that predates anything on lockdown. But with everyone going under lockdown, it's like, well, I have some more time or some slightly more. I don't have to commute anymore, so um, I could take a coffee with somebody now or something like that on Zoom.
Yeah, yeah, and that's exactly what's been happening. Fortunately, because of the boot camp having all those networking events and really teaching me how to network and how to seek out these meetups. I did a lot of meetups pre-COVID. Even still, even after, you know, when I was working with my family, any time I had any extra time that I had, I would go to these meetups. And even working, fortunately, getting hired by Mastery, our office is in the West Loop, where, you know, again, a lot of kind of these meetups were being hosted sort of in the area. So it was very very easy for me to get to. And I was, you know, it was fortunate for me to have done that, because as we kind of moved into these digital virtual spaces, um, you know, it's the same people keeping in touch, but at the same time allowing other folks from other areas, other places to join in. So that meetup, that People of Color Code, now folks from New Jersey join. We have people from Philadelphia, people from California. Like everyone's just kind of joining in. So it's changed things in definitely for, you know, it's exposed all these communities a little bit more, which I think it's great. But with that, it does come some sort of a, you know, mental adjustment and emotional and energy and adjustment as well, because, you know, we don't get the opportunity to walk away as frequently. Sometimes we kind of get stuck in on the screen, and so it can get a little tiring sometimes.
What, that's a very interesting take on it, because since you are working on computers so much, like you appreciate going somewhere and doing that in person. Um, Yeah, I haven't even thought about it that way. People know I work in the marketing department of tech, so I'm on the computer all day long. So it is nice to see people in real life. I know it's been difficult this year to try to do that. But I did want to ask, was it a process for you to be the great seasoned networker that you are now? Are you an introvert, like a resident introvert who presents as an extrovert when necessary? Because not everybody is like, oh yeah, I would love to network. Like some people who have great, expansive careers struggle with networking. And although it is the reason why they are in whatever position they're at, it was a process for them to get great at it. So I'm just wondering, like, did it take you some time, or were you like, I'm a people person, it doesn't matter. Like I love talking to people.
No, for sure. It's funny because I'm the very same way. Definitely an introverted. Just people think I present myself very extroverted, and yeah, definitely. I think it's because I've learned to um, kind of share what I need to share. I guess, you know, I sort of have learned what people expect from certain conversations, and people don't know this, so well, I guess now everyone's gonna know. But
Pulling back the
oh
curtains.
shoot, I'm letting out right. Oh, if people are, you know, people sometimes say like, oh wow, like I never, you know, like you make such a great point. Like, blah, blah. Trust me, these are things that I think about when I'm not talking to anyone. It's almost like I prepare a lot of, okay, if I'm going to interact with this group of people, I have to do this and I have to say these things. And obviously in a way that, so I'm comfortable saying, I'm not in a
Mhm.
fake kind of contrived way. But I did notice that initially I was terrible. Like in person, I was so shy and awkward, and I didn't know how to approach people in groups. And so eventually, I think part of that was actually also going to the meetups and the groups of people that I was comfortable with. So I don't know why I find myself very comfortable around Latinas, and it could be because my mom. I'm super, like um, my mom's such a huge inspiration to me, and just the way that she kind of helped. She raised me.
Hmm.
I find a lot of comfort in Latinas and Latina women, and so I found that like as soon as there's a group here actually in Chicago called Latinas in Tech. I joined that group, and it just you find your element, and that's where you can kind of share experiences, and you get a little more comfortable, and that prepares you for the other spaces where maybe you still kind of have to find a way to interact with people. um, that's been kind of my journey. And then during COVID, same thing where it's just kind of, I think what helps is that there isn't that actual, maybe physical, so I don't feel as
Hmm.
intimidated sometimes. And it's helped me to say, okay, how do I want to come off, and or what do I want to say, what do I want to share about myself.
It's the message is happening left and right, but I will say, very important to tell people that the like preparing yourself and like the pregame for, if I know that I need to be around people and there's certain like social expectations and just gearing myself up, like start there and starting where you're with familiar or comfortable people. Go with friends to these events. Like for maybe the first few events, you are sticking with your group. Eventually, someone might walk up to your group, and then that's someone that you know, and that
Yeah,
extends your network, and that's how it goes.
yeah.
Um, so that awesome. Now I want to segue into some advice. Um, what is some of the worst advice that you have received?
Oh shoot, I don't know if I can even. I'm really good at forgetting terrible advice. I don't know if I can think of any one specific person or piece of advice per se, but sometimes when I hear people say things along, the lines of "don't be yourself" or like or try to do this, and it's sort of like trying to hide who you are. I hate that. I hate that type of advice, and I think again, the boot camp taught us very well to, if anything, that's where I learned the concept of bring your whole self, and all these different concepts. And I think because of that, as I went to certain meetups that, again, I felt maybe weren't built for me, and there were people that didn't look like me, and they would share this kind of advice, and I'd be like, I feel really uncomfortable trying to be that way. I think that that's one of the things that sort of sentiments that people share that I'm just like, I'm not for that. Like I don't
Mhm.
never hide. I don't think you need to hide any aspect, of who you are. If you like, especially if certain people are uncomfortable with it, that probably speaks more about that environment than it does about
Mhm.
you.
Absolutely. There are some things you don't, if you don't want to share them, fine, but like don't hide it. Don't actively hide any part of you.
Right? Don't feel
Um,
forced to
yeah,
hide them.
absolutely. And I think it's a value added to bring your, diverse outlook on things anyway, especially now that people are saying that they want to hear all these diverse voices. Bring that. Don't hide that. That absolutely not. So what's some of the best advice that you have received?
Hmm. Um, Again, kind of just thinking of just in the spaces that I kind of engage in. I love the concept of um, what's the word? Advocating for yourself. Like knowing how to learn how to advocate for yourself, learn how to showcase yourself in a way that isn't like boasty, obviously, but learn how to celebrate your accomplishments, no matter how small they are, and try to use that as a way to kind of keep motivating you, like almost like self motivation, right? Just kind of keep the train going. I find that people have a difficult time with that because of that, that they feel like, oh, maybe I'm being too I'm showboating, or I'm being a specific way that might be seen negatively. But obviously learning, kind of balancing that, and learning ways on how to promote yourself, and advocate for yourself are super essential to being seen, and also growing your career.
So. Now, I've been asking the tech folks recently, during your like application or interview portion of getting a job, is communication very important, just as it would in any other field, or is it more fixed to your technical skills, like you have to do demos of something? And forgive me for my ignorance of if this is not what you guys would call it. But yeah, what does the I don't know if there's like a happy medium between communication or if it's like I just need to go in there, be able to code or run this script and look like I can function it, and then I can get that job. Or do I need to speak to my thought process of why I did it this way? Like where would you say, at least in your experience, that it's like where it's been in that interview space?
um, Definitely leaning more towards communication.
Wow.
And I think
Okay.
again, I think that's more in the recent. I feel like that's again, I haven't really been like a software engineer or even in the tech space for very long. It's just been a couple years, like 4 or 5 years.
Mhm.
But even in that time, you hear things, right? You hear people like, oh, very old-fashioned software engineers or very old-fashioned, people in tech. They used to believe this, but now we found that this works better. And so that is definitely one of those things. In the past, I think you could have gotten away with just the coding skill and just if you were great at what you were doing, if you were great at hacking, you were great at programming, you were great at these, people would just leave you alone and it'd just be like, he might not be the best, the most people person friendly person, but you know what, he codes really great.
Yeah.
But as companies are moving more towards building teams, empathetic teams, and to be able to communicate better within each other, with the team and such. There's definitely have been some like a spotlight on being able to communicate for those reasons, especially, and also especially because like on my day-to-day basis, I deal with project and product managers, and they're not the most technical people, and I need to be able to communicate with them. um, they give me the stories that I need to work on, and if I have questions, I need to be able to ask them, hey, can you be more specific on this? And if I'm viewing it this way in a very technical aspect, how do I translate that into a way that they can kind of see it my way and also be able to answer my question. So um, it's definitely important, I think. And to the point that I brought earlier, I think non-traditional people with non-traditional backgrounds in tech, I think that's what we're kind of flourishing, is being able to bring in those skills from previous experiences.
Absolutely. Now, is that something that's touched on in the boot camp, or the boot camp's like straight up just your technical skills? So, like actual thriving in the corporate space is a completely different story, and you have to learn that in said corporate space. Much like how college is setting you up for skills that may not be specific to real world after college, which you find out after you take out all those loans that you still have something else to learn. But yeah, what would you say? Your outlook on that is.
Yeah, the boot camp definitely prepared for that. And again, I hate talking about that boot camp because it sounds so great, and now they're out of business, and it's like no one else can go there. I'm so sorry. But it was such a great one. They actually their course. So the way that the curriculum was broken down, we actually had a couple classes kind of sprinkled into our curriculum called empathy engineering, and that basically we talked about everything from microaggressions, unconscious bias, um, imposter syndrome, and down to racism, sexism, all these topics we actually talked about, again, in a way that we're supposed to understand them, how they affected the workplace, and how to build better teams by highlighting these issues that might happen out in the real world. So I like that they really focused on that. But I'm not sure about other boot camps. I would love to find out if any of the current boot camps are doing that, because then I would definitely, that'd be the one that I would recommend.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That sounds excellent. How did that shape like work atmosphere you look for? Like just being exposed to that kind of outlook.
Definitely spoils you. I was spoiled. I was like, ooh, that's what I want. All those things. I want all those nice things.
Wow.
Other people are just
You're just pulling the rug out from some of these corporations. Like, well, it's not present everywhere.
no, yeah, definitely. But that's basically what again, kind of thinking of companies that are going to accept uh, engineers from non-traditional backgrounds. You immediately kind of already, can probably assume some things about their culture.
Mm.
Um, Although again, there are times where you could be completely wrong, but there are certain flags,
We
certain
will
things.
not name names. Because you're like, I could, but I will not.
No, it's just something to be wary of that
Yeah.
I think
Okay.
a lot of companies again are wising up to this, and they're like, oh well, if we say these words, we might attract this talent pool, and they could be just as toxic. So
Yeah. Mm.
um but for that reason, I think it shaped the way that the things that I know what to look for. And it can immediately sniff out, I think, I don't think you're being completely honest about these things.
You are quite the diplomat. We appreciate it because we we don't want to burn any bridges. You never know what happens down the line. That person in that network. But I think this would be a perfect time to segue into our Q&A section. So let's go ahead and do that now. Who is your biggest inspiration?
Oh man, that one's so I thought about that, and I've thought about that question because it gets asked a lot, in little workshops and such. And
Hmm.
oh boy, I can't say that I can think of one person, just because, like, if it's one person, it's going to be my mom. Like I said, my mom's huge inspiration, but really, I draw inspiration from, I think, from communities. Really, like, I see my people, the Latinx community. I draw inspiration, their work ethic. Just a lot of things inspire me, the art, and things like that. But also, the Black Lives Matter movement, the Black community, women inspire me. Like, it's just, to me, it's hard to pinpoint just one person, one entity, but I'm more of, the type of person to draw inspiration from whatever's around me, really.
Hmm. Awesome, awesome. Now, who do you hope to uplift with your work?
The youth.
Shout out to the youth. That's what
Yes.
we're here for.
Yes, definitely the youth. Based on kind of like the way our culture is going with memes and all these, like, funny stuff going on online, and the way that teens interact with technology and with each other. Like, I'd really hope that they are, more in tune or paying attention to what's going on, so that they can, go ahead and move forward in positive ways, and in ways that will impact our world for the better. And I'm hoping that I could be there to answer those questions, and uplift them.
Awesome. Now, did you always have a passion for the youth, or was there something like a turning point for you to, like, I want to,
uh,
look out for the next generation or the generations to
yeah,
come?
I like to think that, I think it's always been this way, but it could have also been a period of time where I'm like, ah, crap, we messed it up. We gotta go look to the youth now. It's not too late for
Gen
y'all.
Z, come save us all, Gen Z. And whatever the next one after that, the toddlers, whatever generation you guys are, we need y'all.
Right. Who do I need to teach code? I'm teaching my nieces. They're I think 2 and 5 respectively. I'm gonna teach them to code like as soon as they can.
I mean, well, like, how young is too young to learn? I feel like there's certain functions that, like, if you know this, then you're going to be set on some of these languages.
Oh yeah, I mean, there is a Fisher Price caterpillar that's supposed to set the foundation for kind of programming
Hmm.
design ideals, and so that one, I think the age suggests the age was 3. So I'm like, okay, all right, they're gonna learn how to program at age
You're
3.
just like, okay, 3, we're good. Shout out to Fisher Price then. So awesome. Um, and the last of our Q&A is, how do you stay engaged with your motivation?
Um, hmm, that's a pre-COVID or during COVID?
We could do it before and after.
Oh, I know. Well, I think before COVID, it was, a lot easier because again, I saw people. There was so much that to be seen,
Hmm.
and then I've had my bad moments during COVID, adjusting to working from home and adjusting to um, large amount of times that we can't leave. Here in Chicago, there were a couple of extreme lockdowns, and we're about to go into another one, because numbers have not been dropping. So we're about to go into another extreme lockdown, which basically means you're not allowed to go outside unless it's essential. And not sure if it's going to happen. That's just sort of what's been going on in the news. But I mean, last time it happens, it definitely affects a lot of our mental states. So
Absolutely.
to stay motivated, I try to I get try to ingest media, like things that I know, videos, podcasts, anything that kind of would help me still realize that there's an outside world, and
Hmm.
it's they need help, or people are doing something similar, and I can piggyback off of them or use their experiences.
Perfect. Perfect. So, what's next for you? Do you have any side projects? Is there any events that you're a part of that you got coming up that you can let us know about?
Right now, no events, but I would say that definitely check out, People of Color Code. I'm trying to. That was another kind of experimental thing for me. Was can I be so organized that I can help co-organize this community? And so I've been putting my efforts with them, Tech by Choice, that as
Shout out to
you've
Tech
kind of
by Choice.
yeah, that you've been a part of, and Tequeria as well, tequeria.org. Check these organizations out for for support, for to engage there, and that's where you'll see me, again, interacting. So that's
Awesome.
probably the best way
We'll
to
we'll
reach me.
drop those links definitely in the description box so people can follow up and see all about that. Now, how can people get in contact with you specifically?
So I'm very active on LinkedIn. So if you provide the LinkedIn uh, um, link there, I'm definitely very active. I respond to that. Recently got a Calendly actually. I was like, am I cool enough to have a Calendly? And so if you want, I can also share that, and you can book uh, 15-minute, 30-minute, 60-minute just chat. Nothing
Oh, that's awesome.
nothing complicated.
Perfect. All right. Is there anything else you want to share with the people? Any advice? Um, any words of wisdom? You've been quite the pastor today with a lot of great messages. We
Yes,
appreciate it.
yeah, I would say if you're struggling with, the pandemic, if you're struggling with being at home, like I have, reach out to folks. I think it's somehow becoming harder to even, to remember that there are people we can talk to, but to, just realize that your family's there, your friends are there, and again, these communities, I think, have been really, really crucial in keeping me motivated and not going to lowest depths of sadness.
Awesome. On that note, thank you so much, Oscar Delgadillo, aka Ox, for joining us once again. I'm Sammy Ash, the Executive Director of the Ash Academy. Everyone, have a great one. Talk to you later.